What's going on, guys? Today, I'm going to be going through what I believe are the top 10 competitive play cards from the Journey Together set that was released this past week. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. At number 10, we have Ruffian. It is a supporter card that allows you to discard a Pokemon tool card and a special energy attached to one of your opponent's Pokemon. It's definitely not a build-around card. It is a tech that could go into decks. Special energy are not super prevalent right now, but there's always a spot for certain special energy in the format. They'll pop up from time to time, and you never know what decks it could be useful against. Pokemon tools, on the other hand, are very useful to get rid of, especially with Sparkling Crystal being so popular in a lot of the Ogre decks, and really anything with any kind of evolution or any Terra Pokemon in general that relies on primarily Crispin and just having that kind of one energy attachment per turn. Ruffian could be useful in the future. You never know when cards like these come out, because if they're not useful now, they almost always are useful sometime in the future. So I could see a world in which it could be kind of teched in most decks in the format, or at least in a few decks that could have the extra space for it if it's already consistent enough. At number 9, we have Iono's Bellibolt EX. It has the ability Electric Streamer, which says as often as you like during your turn, you can attach a lightning energy from your hand to one of your Iono's Pokemon. Limited because it cannot attach to any Pokemon. It has to be an Iono's Pokemon. There is decent support for it, but this kind of ability on a stage 1 is really solid. So historically, you have your Blastoises, your Emboars, your Magnezones, things like that are all, or currently your Baxcaliburs that are all stage 2 Pokemon that require extra setup to get into play, and usually some amount of rare candies in your deck. So Iono's Bellibolt is interesting in the fact that it's just a stage 1. It's much easier to get into play. It has 280 HP, so it's really hard to knock out once it is in play. And it can pair well primarily with Iono's Voltorb, which can do a lot of damage depending on how many energy you can get into play. The only things that I don't love about this card and why it's lower on the list is that it is an EX. So even though it does come with that very high HP, it can get shut off by Iron Thorns, and can somewhat be a target on the bench to be able to track down and knock out for the opposing decks. But I do really like this ability, and they rarely have abilities like these on Pokemon that are completely irrelevant and in any kind of metagame. So having it on a stage 1 is really awesome in my opinion. At number 8, we have Hops Zacian EX. It has the Insta Strike attack, which for one colorless does 30 to the active and 30 to a bench Pokemon. And for 3 metal energy and a colorless, it does Brave Slash does 240, and he can't use that attack on the next turn. I like this Pokemon a lot. It is a throwback to Landorus EX with Hammerhead back from 2013. The really cool thing about this Pokemon is that the Insta Strike attack, which is the attack you'll be using more often than not, takes just a colorless energy, and there's a lot of support with that with Hop's Choice Band coming out in this set as well. So I really like it as an aggressive deck. And Hops Zacian has a decent amount of HP for a basic 2. 230 is really solid. So the stats on the card are really nice. It can pair well. I personally believe a lot of the Hop support is some of the best in this set. So it's just really going to be a good core attacker for any kind of aggressive Hop strategy for the upcoming format. So at number 7, we have Ends PP Up. It is an item card. It lets you attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to one of your benched Ends Pokemon. I kind of included this card on the list based off of raw power level. I actually think that the Ends Pokemon in this set are not that great, to be honest. And so I don't think this card will see a lot of competitive play. But for any Ends deck that anybody plays to a tournament, this is going to be at least a 3 of in the deck, because It's just too powerful to not play. Most decks that have Pokemon that even take 2 or 3 energy in that range will want some form of energy acceleration. And I think having, so even with and Zoroark EX, even though it only takes 2 energy, you'll still want energy acceleration in this form, especially in item form. Energy acceleration in any kind of item or supporter form is always ideal for decks, so you're not having to set up any extra Pokemon. So I like this card just for the power level. I don't think it'll see a lot of play, but I had to put it on this list just for the sake of that. At number 6, we have Hop's Choice Band. It is a Pokemon tool card that says the Hop's Pokemon that it's attached to. Their attacks take a colorless less to use, and they do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. This tool card is actually bonkers. This is part of the reason I think the Hops engine is going to be so good. Although I don't think the top end power level of any of the Hops Pokemon are that strong, I think the fact that you can attack with Hops Zacian with the support of other things like Snorlax, the stadium that's coming with it, and the Hop's Choice Band means you can get a really fast, powerful, aggressive deck while also possibly having a backup attacker that could go and kind of sweep up the mid to late game. And I just think that this tool is insane in terms of power level. I know Pokemon's been around for a while, so the power creep has gotten very strong over the years, but being able to reduce your attacks by a colorless energy and do 30 more damage is nuts, if you ask me. And it's easily searchable in this format with Arven. Shoot, you could play Town Store if you need to search it out as well. But this is just going to be really easy to get into your hand and really easy to get attached to your Hop Zacian to attack as soon as possible. So that's why it's on this list at number 6. At number 5, we have Iono's Kilowattrel, which has the ability, Flashing Draw, that forces you to discard a lightning energy from the Iono's Kilowattrel in order to draw up to 6 cards in your hand. I really like this ability. The attack's not really too relevant for this card, but as a stage 1, 120 HP, I think there's going to be some way of using this card. Obviously, it pairs with the Iono's card, so Iono's Belly Bolt pairs perfectly with it because you can just attach an energy to it with the electric streamer from the Belly Bolt and then use it as draw power. And with Iono's Belly Bolt, you can set up multiples. I could see a world where this could be used in other ways as well. If you have a Pokemon that you can't, or that you can attack with for no energy, like Hop Zacian with the Choice Band, then you can use your energy attachment for turn for the Iono's Kilowattrel. You can use this with Blaziken EX, which we'll talk about later. There's a lot of interesting ways, I think, in which this card can be used. It is limited somewhat. Obviously, you have to play lightning energy and you have to be able to attach an energy from your hand to it. But drawing till you have 6 cards in your hand on a stage 1 and being able to keep a lightning energy on him for the future in case you get Iono to a really low hand and you want to be able to draw out of it is also really good in my opinion. So I think having that extra draw power in any deck will be solid to just kind of have to help you set up and also help you in the late game. So that's why I have this card on the list at number 5. At number 4, we have Mamoswine EX, which is a stage 2. It has 340 HP, so it is a tank. Its ability says once during your turn, you can basically search your deck for a Pokemon and reveal it and put it into your hand. And its attack, Rumbling March, for 2 fighting energy, does 180 damage plus 40 more damage for each of your benched stage 2 Pokemon. This card is all around awesome. The ability is great. It is great as an engine in and of itself. It is great as a tech because searching out a Pokemon every turn is really sweet. 340 HP is really hard to knock out. It's a lot of HP. There are ways you can give it even more HP with Hero's Cape and Ludicolo in this set as well. And it's 2 fighting energy for 180 damage on a fighting Pokemon is solid on its own, but to be able to stack with each extra stage 2 you have on the bench, it doesn't exclude any bench Mamoswine. So you could literally have 3 Mamoswine in play, and for 2 fighting energy, you're doing 260 damage, which is really sweet. It pairs well with itself because you set up Mamoswine and you just search for more Mamoswine line Pokemon with your Swinubs and your Piloswines, and then you can just attack with them. It's really a great card all around. It's techable and it's efficient too. 2 fighting energy is very manageable. Usually on a Pokemon like this, you'd see it being printed with 3 energy, 4 energy type attacks because it has so much HP and such a high retreat. You'd anticipate it to take a lot of energy to attack, but no, it's really efficient and it sets itself up very well. I really like this Pokemon. I think it can be used in a lot of different ways. It is just all around a great card, and I think it'll see a lot of competitive play. At number 3, we have Hop Stubwool, which has the ability Defiant Horn that says when you evolve into Hop Stubwool, you can switch out one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to their active spot. It's a kind of callback to the original Luxray GL Level X. It's really solid ability. It does not have a great attack, but its gusting effects are always great, and being on a stage 1 is really solid. The nice thing about Hop Stubwool is obviously you can pair it with the Hops Pokemon. It'll be easier to search out the Hops Wooloo with the Hops search item lets the Hops bag, which lets you get 2 basic Hops Pokemon. But really it can be played on its own, which is what I really like about it. It's also searchable with Fan Rotom. So any deck that maybe plays maybe a Terrabox deck or anything that plays Noctowl that would use Fan Rotom to set up all your Hoot Hoots. You can also grab Hops Wooloo with it. It's just a really solid card overall. And I think, in a format that has Professor Churros scenario, you can pick it up and reuse that type of ability. It can honestly be used as a 1/1. This is not a card you're going to build a deck around, but it can be used anywhere from a 1/1 to possibly even a 2/2 or a 3/2. And I just think this is a good ability. These abilities have always been really good. So I love this card, and I certainly believe it'll see some amount of competitive play. At number 2, we have Lily's Clefairy EX, which has the ability Fairy Zone, which says the weakness of each of your opponent's dragon Pokemon in play is now Psychic type, Psychic ×2. So kind of how it used to be dragons ×2 weak to fairy Pokemon. But instead it's all psychic Pokemon. And then Full Moon Rondo is its attack for a psychic and a colorless. It does 20 damage plus 20 more damage for each bench Pokemon in play, both yours and your opponent's. It's like Raikou V. This is a really solid card, and it's very techable. You can use the attack on its own, but there's certainly plenty of psychic Pokemon you could also play to just use this as a tech to drop. And obviously it's for Dragapult. Dragapult is kind of the boogeyman right now. The Atlanta Regionals is in about a week and a half or so. And so everybody's anticipating a sufficient amount of Dragapult being kind of making up the metagame there. I would anticipate at least 20 to 30% of the decks will have some amount of Dragapult line in it. It's just very consistent, and just having Iona's Clefairy in your deck. Iona's Clefairy EX is really easy to power up to. Just a Psychic and a colorless energy. You can power that up with Crispin. Any deck that plays Psychic energy and another type of a basic energy can Crispin and just set it up instantly. So it doesn't even have to sit on your bench to be able to knock out a Dragapult right away. So it can come down out of nowhere, have Crispin attach energy to it, and you can just Full Moon Rondo, knocking out Dragapult EX right away. And it can be hard to respond to if that's the case. So just really solid card. It only has 1 retreat. 190 HP is good enough. And if you really want to, you can use the Lily's Pearl. cannot remember the name off the top of my head. Yeah, Lily's Pearl, actually. And you can play it with with the Clefairy. I don't think you'll need to. I think this card is good enough on its own to just be a great tech to swing a Dragapult matchup for any deck that would play it. So that's why it's on the list here at number 2. And at number 1 on this list is going to be Blaziken EX. I think this card is awesome. It has 320 HP. It's stage 2. Its ability, Seething Spirit, once during your turn, lets you attach a basic energy from your discard pile to any one of your Pokemon in play. There are no limitations on it at all. It has to be a basic energy, but it can be any type of basic energy. And you can attach it to any Pokemon. It can be bench or active. Its attack for a fire and a colorless does 200 damage, and you can't, Blaziken cannot attack on the next turn. Actually, a really good attack, all things considered. He is fire type, so we one-shot Archaludon, assuming the Archaludon has not attacked on the previous turn. One-shots Goldango, 2 Pokemon that I think are going to be quite popular in the upcoming format for Atlanta and for NAIC. But Seething Spirit is insane. It's great in decks that just need energy acceleration and only runs one type of energy. It's even better in decks that take multiple types of energy. You can power up all sorts of Pokemon with this. Obviously, Terra Pokemon are the first that come to mind. Evolutions that take all sorts of various energies. You can build a deck around that. It pairs well with Pikachu EX. You can play it with Raging Bolt. There's just tons of things that this card, there's tons of attackers that this card can make more consistent, more realistically viable. A lot of cards that would be very hard to set up on their own, and just being able to play a lower energy count in your deck, but also being able to vary the amount of energies you play. Because if you have, say, 2 Blaziken EX set up, then you're able to get back different types of energy, and you're not having to worry about playing a bunch of energy recovery. You wouldn't have to play tons of Super Odd in any of those types of decks, any superior energy retrieval or whatnot. So it really helps you it fits well into decks by allowing you to somewhat lower your energy count, just because you can get them back every turn with the ability. And it also gives you that added kind of maneuvering around various energy types that you want to play in a deck. So I personally think this card is awesome. I cannot fathom a world where this card is played as zero ofs. We've already seen it be popular in Japan in the previous month or so with Mamoswine decks, and I can totally see a world where this card is used very creatively with a lot of different attackers, especially a lot of different Terra attackers. So that is why I have Blaziken EX at number 1 on this list. Some honorable mentions on this list would be Ens Zoroark EX, Lavincia, and Ens Castle, which are all cards that I think are solid. I just don't think they'll see a ton of play in the format. I think the Ens cards will not be super popular, but something like Lavincia could see some play with lightning-based decks. I like Ludicolo. There's really some interesting cards that just kind of missed out on this top 10 list. And that's my top 10 for Journey Together. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And please feel free to roast this list as much as you want. This is my personal opinion, but I have been known to be wrong in the past on some things. So I'm curious what y'all will think. And be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see y'all next time.